earlier we were having a conversation about whether producers and mixing and mastering their own songs, pros and cons, our opinions. You're very much on the side of you're a producer and you mix while you go, and then you'll master the track and you'll do everything yourself. And this is the thing is nowadays, it's almost expected of a producer to be able to mix your song, regardless of how good you are at it. It all comes kind of encompasses the whole process of you produce a song,
Yeah.
you mix a song, and you would sometimes even master a song. Now, me being a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer, I'm very much on the side of kind of separating the roles, and I think there's some valid reasons to do that. And one of them, one of the key reasons is, as a producer, you'll know this. You, it's very hard to make the correct decisions at the mixing stage, I find, when you're so invested into the production. Like, there'll be times where you've spent countless hours crafting this one sound, and because you've spent that amount of time on that one sound, it's like it has to be at the forefront. It has to be. And whereas someone like myself who's listening to it for the first time, you'll make more of I'll make more accurate I find I'll make more accurate decisions based on what needs to be done and what should be done, whereas I don't have any prior attachment to the song's production.
I don't actually agree with you.
Oh, well. Fancy that.
I would have agreed with you about maybe 10 years ago when
that was when bigger budgets.
Yeah.
So when there were bigger budgets and you
Yeah.
weren't, there was budgets to go, oh yeah, we'll send a mix there, send the master there, and then we'll shoot the music video with them, and those days are kind of gone.
They are gone. However, I'm even talking about maybe not 10 years ago then, maybe 5 to 7 to 8 years ago, when people could afford to buy studios, let's say home studios, even bedroom studios, and they could, in the box at least, afford to mix and master themselves. I'm even talking like that. I've kind of changed my opinion over the last few years. And yes, I do think that producers, if they can, or if they can't, they should learn to mix and master themselves.
Should definitely. I 100% would agree. 100%, you should learn how to mix.
Reason being, I think over the last few years, because of the fact that we can, I think the lines have very much blurred between. Actually, I'm going to go even further back. The lines have blurred between lyricist, songwriter in terms of the music, even together with the producer and the mixing engineer and the mastering engineer. They all used to be separate categories. Absolutely. Yeah. You'd get, like, for example, Elton John, Bernie Taupin, lyricist, musician. Then you'd get a producer, completely different, like, from them, completely separate. Then it goes for the record company, will take it to the mixing engineer, and finally the mastering engineer. Now, I look at all this as a holistic approach, and I think of all these things as art. So, for example, mixing now, to me, is a creative process. It's part of the production. Now, I see what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying about you're someone separate hearing it for the first time. I get that, but really and truly, the songwriter and the producer will have a vision of what they want it to sound like, and if they're capable of doing that, they should do that themselves.
Right. So they can capture that.
Yeah.
So there's no reason you can't capture that.
Sure.
But here's my thing with this is that producer and that when you're putting the production together can only take it so far. And at some point, when delivering it to a mixing engineer, it takes it that level. It goes from there to there.
But that depends how good you are at mixing. So, for example, your strength is mixing and mastering. I know you can produce, but your strength is mixing and mastering. But if you did decide that you want to produce a track, you could mix as you go and master as you go, and it's going to sound incredible. So if that producer can also become an incredible mixing and mastering engineer, then they should do it.
Yeah,
100%. They should do it. Yeah.
But not everybody is good at mixing.
Tell me
who's
about
a
it.
Producer.
Tell me about it. Wow. So I over the past few years, I've got very much into the mixing and mastering stage. So I used to be, for many, many years, I can't even remember how many years, I've been professionally producing. But like you said, I've been expected to do the mixing and the mastering a lot because of budget, really, but mostly. Yeah. So that's how I've become good at mixing and mastering as well. But over the past few years, I've done a lot of jobs which are just mixing and just mastering. So I see it from both sides. But what I will say is, it amazes me how terrible a lot of mixes. You know, when they said you demo mixes, the producers, how awful they are. I can't even say. Brilliant productions. Yeah. Hats off to their productions. But some of the mixes are so bad. I think it's like a joke. It's like April Fools or something like that, which is great for me and you because it means we do what they can't do and we get the work.
But then if they're expected to mix it and that's how the song is expected to sound, because and now that song goes out sounding as
agreed.
Terrible.
Oh, agreed.
But then, so if budget wasn't a factor, if money wasn't a factor, it would be advised to use a mixing engineer to get it to that level. Now, the problem you have with a lot of people is they're not great at mixing because they're producers.
Yeah.
You know, a producer shouldn't be expected to be a great mixing engineer, but they are expected in many cases. So they're only a lot of the time, and I see it as well. Is I receive mixes to mix, and the rough demo mix is terrible in comparison to what the end result is.
Absolutely.
So I know the importance of how important a mix done correctly is, and it is somewhat annoying that it's expected now, because it's expected at a cost to the overall quality and the end result, and the song's never going to get as far as it could have got, having gone out as one of these what you're referring to as a bad mix.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you put all that effort into the production, and people spend hours upon hours putting the productions together.
Yeah.
And then fall at the final hurdle, especially falling at the final hurdle of mastering.
Yeah.
It's like, even if you have to do the mix, like that's expected of you, you can't be expected to be a mastering engineer as well, because that's on a different level.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways people get mastering so wrong. And it's falling at the final hurdle for the sake of saving. Like, how can you spend that much time writing, recording, putting together this production, even if you are mixing it, and then at the final stage you either go AI, that'll do.
Yeah.
That really annoys me.
Yeah.
Because I know myself the difference of what a song sounds like here to then mastering it and getting it to sound so it's up there with other professional. Even you can rescue a bad mix, a semi-bad mix. You can rescue it in the mastering stage.
Yeah.
And it's annoying that's what is seen as what is expected of you. It's like producers now, they're expected to be their own video guy, they're expected to do all their content, there's so much that's just expected of someone.
Yeah.
When in an ideal world it wouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
But and it's all to cut cost.
It is to cut cost. Record labels, they want everything done for them on the plate.
Want every record label you'll ever speak to, how many follows you got.
That's right.
Because we don't have to want to promote this.
No.
You can promote it.
Yeah.
Well, why am I using my followers Like, what are you actually doing
Yeah,
here?
it's about data. That's
Yeah.
all they care about is data. They care about the music to an extent, of
Yeah.
course, but it's about data. It's
Well,
about Insta followers. Yeah,
arguably,
it's a business.
but arguably, someone with if I went to a massive record label and I had 200 million subscribers on YouTube,
Yeah,
100 million on TikTok, I'd get a record deal,
yeah. That's
even
right.
if I couldn't sing,
course
and
you
I
would.
would get a record deal
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
just based on those numbers, and
Correct.
that's sad.
Yeah.
But it's true.
yeah. I've actually got someone who I won't name. From Love Island. I've actually worked with someone from Love Island last week. She's amazing, amazing. But there's another Love Island person who's currently in it now, and she has got absolutely millions of followers, and she does sing actually, and she's good. She's good.
You haven't mentioned her name.
I won't mention her name.
No, but it's quite easy to work out who that would be.
Not necessarily. No, I don't think it is. It's not the one that I told you about that came in last week. This is someone else.
No. I'm yeah.
Okay.
But I'm saying.
Yeah. But again, I'm not saying anything bad. But I actually bumped into her, and we're gonna get her in. And don't get me wrong, she's got a good voice and like she's great, but I'm getting her in because of her insane amount of followers. And I said to her, because of your followers and your social media, like you will get signed to a major label.
Yeah.
It's just no question of it. But we're kind of digressing a little bit. So a lot. So let's say 10, 15 years ago. Well, just to give me as an example, I started off as a songwriter. I wasn't a good producer at all at the beginning. I had potential, definitely. I was imaginative, but didn't really know what I was doing. I was what you would call a top line writer.
Yeah.
And then I was paying people to like get vocalists in, and I was paying vocal engineers and vocal producers to do all the tuning and everything. And then I thought, why am I paying them? So I got myself a good mic, I got a Yamaha O2R. Do you remember those desks? Mm-hmm. And I learned how to do vocal production as well. And it was brilliant because I had full control as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember I used to go to these people and pay them. And then I've got a good ear and I could hear they haven't tuned it accurately. Mm-hmm. Then I'd have to keep going back and they get annoyed because I keep going back. So that was my next stage.
If you want something done.
Yeah. Do it yourself. That's right. Exactly that. Yeah. Then I was relying on producers to produce the track. Again, paying them, and some great producers, and I pay them. But again, I wasn't absolutely blown away by a lot of those productions. And again, the more I went back, the more they charge, and I never had full control. So I thought, I'm musical, so I learned how to produce. And then I became a successful producer as well. Next stage, I was paying mixing engineers, and I used to really annoy them, like some people annoy me now.
I can imagine.
but I did. I was such a perfectionist, but not for the sake of it. I did know because I had a good ear. I've always had a good ear for mixing, and even though they called themselves professional, it wasn't right what they were doing. Again, I'd go back and I'd go back and I'd go back, and I never had full control. And if I ever wanted other versions and all that, it was a bit of a nightmare. So I thought, I'm going to teach myself how to mix. Now that wasn't easy. That took me years and years and years. When I listen back to my mixes from like even maybe 10, 15 years ago, it's terrible.
Arguably there, right?
Yeah.
In regards to that.
Yeah.
And I hear this, people say, if I listen to a mix 10 years ago, it's terrible and all this. And I always remind them, is like the equipment we used 10 years ago is very different to what we use now. The plugins we used 10 years ago, very different now. So is it that the mixes were bad based on your ability, which obviously you do learn, you will have learned a lot over 10 years, but the tech that we're using back then in comparison to now, you're able to achieve a lot more?
You have a very good point. However, I'm going to put it down to more us.
Yeah, I mean, of course, over 10 years.
Because a lot of plugins that I use now are pretty old. I use a lot of the Sonox plugins.
Yeah, no, they're over 10
They're
years.
really old, but a lot of them were so ahead of their time. Such as I've spoken to you about this before in previous videos, like the DSM, for example.
Yeah.
It was made years ago, but I love it. It's one of my favourite plugins. So, but I see what you're saying. But either way, for me, experience-wise, it took me years to get to where I am now. And you know what? Maybe in 10 years' time.
So should someone who's been producing for a year be expected to mix?
Not expected. However,
what record label? Let's say an independent record label. What independent record label is going to go? Oh yeah, we'll take that track off you, and then we'll pay to get it mixed.
Yeah, next to none.
None.
Next to none.
You're going to be expected to either mix it yourself or get it mixed.
Yeah.
Before it's taken on,
or at least in terms of major labels, get it close, and then they might bring someone in to do additional mixing, maybe even additional production. That's what I've found. But usually they're labels that are at least linked with majors that have a budget.
Here's one. Right. So talking of majors, now delivering a track, taking it to A&R, sitting down at a table and going through a track. You've been in those meetings plenty of times. Would you take, let's say you were sending a track off to be mixed, would you take to that meeting the finished mix and master to that meeting that's been professionally done, or would you take just the rough?
Oh, of course, I'll take the professional one. Of course.
Yeah. But I've known a few people take the rough mix before it's come to us, for instance. They've taken it, and we've had these conversations, and I've said to them, look, if you get there's a wow factor. It's the same wow factor that you get when I send you back the master and you go, wow.
Yeah.
Surely you want the A&R to see that.
Of course.
That's how you want them to experience it.
Yeah.
So don't take your rough mix to them.
No.
Because you've got one chance. You've got one chance to make that massive impression. Because next time you come back, it's like, oh, it's that geezer again.
But you know why they're doing that? Because in the back of their mind, they want the record label to say, we'll pay for the mix and the master. Well, that's what it is. They don't want to fork out for it. Whereas...
But then you're never going to get that. If you can't get that wow factor off of a relatively flat, lifeless mix, and, I've heard the mixes, but like taking it, sounding like a professional hit record, even if they're going to then take it and have it done somewhere else, it's that impact there and then of sitting around that table, them playing it, and them going, all right, let's listen to the next one.
Yeah.
Or them going, whoa, come in here and have a look.
Yeah.
We've all been in those situations.
But that's why I say, let's say you're a producer and you're lousy at mixing and mastering because you compare your mixes with the professionals and you realise it's terrible. So in that situation, you either pay a mixing and a mastering engineer like yourself or me, and you get it sounding incredible, okay, and you continue paying, or you do what I did, which is over years and years and years, hone in on your craft. I've worked day and night, and I still do, day and night, like hardly sleep, and I'm constantly like wanting to improve. Even now, as a professional mixing engineer, I'm still like striving to improve every single day. Even
I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
Because this industry changes continuously. New equipment, new plugins, new ways and approaches are constantly coming out, and ways of doing things, workflow changes, updates to your DAW, little features. You're continuously learning.
Yeah.
I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and someone asked, like, what point have you learned everything? It's like, tomorrow something new happens.
Correct. No point.
It's like you'll never ever know everything. You'll be learning every single day. And if you ain't learning every single day, if you think you can go for the next year without learning anything, then that's not good. You should be learning every single day. Just
And that's what makes it exciting as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. It's exactly it. But so yeah. So to end this video, I think we agree with one another. However, unless someone is at an extremely high standard as a mixing engineer and as a mastering engineer, only then should they do their own mixing and mastering, a producer.
I think what it all comes down to is if money was no object, or if everybody had £10,000 budget for every song, everyone would go,
yeah, of course,
yeah.
Even me, who's a bit of a control freak, that's partly why I like to do everything. Even me, if money was no object, I'd probably get at least someone to tune all the vocals.
But that's just because
and I probably would get someone. I'd probably get someone else to mix and master. But
also as well with regards to that, in terms of if you were getting someone else to mix and master, there's no reason you can't take it as far as you can take it. There's so much that a mixing engineer can do, even if you've taken it as far as you can, and it's right up here, as far as you can possibly take it. You think it sounds great, and then the difference of where that mixing engineer can take it up to there.
But just one question. I know I said we'd end, but just one question, which I've always thought about as well. So I know you always are of the opinion, and I do agree with you, that a producer should do the best mix that they can, that they think sounds good, and that the stems that they give to the professional mixing engineer should all remain EQ'd and compressed exactly the way they've done it, and the levels relative to exactly the way they've done it, and that it's your job and my job to continue with that and polish what they've done. I do agree with you, but what you say about these producers that we're talking about that are lousy at mixing, if they give us stems that are mixed and compressed, are they not doing more harm than good?
Yeah, so that's when it's better for someone to choose to send raw multi-tracks.
Right, okay.
So that's when it's highly beneficial.
Okay.
So if you're lousy at mixing and you've made all the wrong changes, then print off raw multi-tracks.
Right.
The only thing you've got to bear in mind there is it's twice as much work for us as mix engineers to work with raw multi-tracks. So it's going to cost twice as much.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how it works.
So you're saying that the producer has to be honest with themselves and realistic with themselves.
Well, has to be honest with themselves.
Yeah.
But like, there's no reason. Like I always say this to people when they're sending stems: is what is the purpose of why you've put the processing on? It's intentional to get the sound that you want. So if you've used an EQ to I don't know, well, it's not something that's for mix purposes. It's something for like, I don't intend there to be any low end in this synth. It's all about the high end.
Yeah,
that's intentional.
Yeah,
that's nothing. That's not subjective and like, maybe we should have a little bit more. It is
subjective because they want. That
is the sound that they're after. It's not,
production. It's not really mixing.
Yeah, so creative. It's like all these little processes, if they are fundamental to your actual sound and what you want the sound to sound like, you've made those changes and you've made those edits with processing because it's intentional. And that's what things like compression, reverb, things like that, they can be, you can mess that up. But things like EQ, you generally speaking,
I don't know.
But it's when it's EQ for the purpose of mixing purposes to carve out space.
Yeah,
that can go wrong.
But what about when people add so much mid and so much low end? It's like, it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
it's not a nightmare, but it'd be better to start from a clean slate when we're EQing.
Yeah, but then if we're starting from a clean slate, it's a lot more work, so it's a lot more cost.
Yeah.
So those things are factored in.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's very informative as ever, and great talking to you.
Good stuff.
Cheers, Paul.